This
what are the
conference will now be recorded.
so we have seen what is the basic structure of HL7 message and what are the delimiters of each HL7 message, how to read an HL7 message, right? So in today's session,
Yes.
we'll go ahead and see how HL7 message is an event-driven messaging standard and how messages are generated and all. So let me know once you can see my screen. Can
Yes,
you
I
see
can
my
see
screen?
you.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
event-driven messaging methodology.
Yes. So, as I said, when we were discussing about hospital workflow, so we will be mapping or we will be tracking back to the blueprint of hospital workflow most of the times to understand how each events are considered within the hospital workflow. Okay. So, during the process of hospital workflow, we have seen that patients visit the receptionist, they get registered, they get the appointments created, and then few orders are placed and so on. So further the process takes place to execute various works which are there within the hospital workflow. So all of those events are basically broken down into different events, which is why HL7 messaging standard is called as a event-driven messaging methodology. Okay, so if you look at a test message, we have seen that we have different segments in the message, and each segment has a field, and each field is again divided into components, right? And as I said, the standards are written from a perspective that the data or an event which happens in the real-time world will generate the necessity of data flow from one system to the other. So what does that mean? That means, for example, there is an event which is happening at the front end at the hospital desk, let's say registering a patient. So a receptionist will collect the entire data information from the patient like name, date of birth, gender and all. They will capture that information and they will store that information in their PM system, which is a practice management system, and they hit on save. So saving a specific record of the patient is a trigger, which is a closure for that particular event. Okay, so patient visiting the receptionist, coming there, telling that I want to meet a doctor, and receptionist collecting the information from the patient about his demographics, and finally entering that and then clicking on save. So that concludes that particular event, and data is stored into the database when they click on save. So that event is completed. So we can say that a registration event is completed at that point of time. So that event, when they click on save, is generating the necessity of data flow from PM system to EHR system, because whatever is getting saved, whatever demographic information is getting saved in the PM system has to flow over to EHR system, which is at the doctor's desk, so the doctor can know who are the patients that are coming. Okay, or else if there is no demographic data in the PM EHR system, then doctor might not know which patient is coming over, what is the patient name and all of this information. So this will be the basic requirement of any system, that whether something is registered in the PM system has to flow over to the HR system. So that is an event which created or generated the necessity of data flow, which is nothing but the demographic information flow from one system to the another system. So this event which is happening is called as a trigger event, and this event has generated the necessity of data flow even in the real-time world. So we have many such events which are happening where the necessity of data flow like demographics or appointments from one system to another system will take place, which is why, and each of these events will result in generation of an HL7 message, which is why it is called as a uh, event-driven messaging methodology. So we will look at all the possible events that we might come across during the hospital workflow so that we can understand it in a more broader manner, and we will slowly narrow it down to the most possible events and message types that we come across. So if you broadly look at hospital workflow, we have 5 different events. Registration is one event, Appointment scheduling is another event. Generating labs like orders and results is another event. And finally, generating charges is another event. Apart from these major four events, you also have events which will include pharmacies sending messages and receiving messages back from pharmacies, and also sending messages to insurance companies and getting the claims settled or claim responses in claim response messages from the insurance companies. So that is a different standard altogether. We will not be looking into pharmacies and insurance standards because that doesn't follow HL7 messaging methodology, but we'll be looking at the other events. Just to give a very high level overview, I have included that. So these are the major events that usually happens in the hospital workflow on a in a broader note, on a broader note. But when we so again, these are again broken down into sub events. So we'll be looking at what are those sub events in a while. So as we have seen in the hospital workflow, we saw that whenever there is a patient visits the hospital and first thing they get is their registration information done. Once that is done, the second event that happens is scheduling an appointment. And then they will visit the doctor. At the doctor's desk, they will generate the orders and results will be sent back from the laboratory to EHR. And from there, once the entire diagnosis is done, patient heads back to the receptionist to figure out what are the charges that he has to pay in case if he's paying from hand, or else if they're generating insurances or insurance claims, then hospital itself will go ahead and generate an insurance claim and send it to the insurance company and get them back. So each of these events, this can be considered as major events. So each of these have their own naming convention in HL7. Okay, because in HL7 we cannot use the term registration, we cannot use the term appointment schedule. So each of these events has their own names in HL7. So we'll look at those names now. So registration is called as an ADT message. Whenever we are talking about anything that is pertaining to registration, we represent that with a message type called as ADT. ADT is nothing but admit, discharge, and transfer. So most of the terms that we will come across during this HL7 training, most of the terms or most of the short forms will will actually tell what exactly they are doing. So if we understand the full form of that acronym, we'll get to understand what that is for. So if you look at ADT, it says admit, discharge, and transfer. So basically, whenever there is any admit of patient or discharge or transfer of patient, it deals with demographic information. So, which is why it is called as an ADT message. Now, next we have appointment schedule. So, this is nothing but scheduling information unsolicited, which means whenever there is any appointment related information that will be sent from the PM system to EHR system. So, there is a point to note here. It says unsolicited. So, what is the meaning of unsolicited? Whenever there is a message standard which flows in unidirection, then it is called as unsolicited, which means even in the real-time world, for demographic messages, there could be a possibility that we might be sending from PM to EHR, from EHR to a different PM again. So there is a two-way flow of demographic messages or ADT messages. But when we talk about appointment messages, there is no possibility of the reverse flow of the message. For example, appointments will be scheduled always at the receptionist and message will flow from the receptionist desk to the doctor's desk through an interface that they create, and it will go from PM application to EHR application. But when we talk about reverse flow, appointment will can appointment be created at the doctor's desk and sent back to the PM system? No, that possibility is not there. So never an appointment is created at the doctor's desk, which is why it is an unsolicited message type, which means It will always flow in one direction only. There is no possibility of secondary direction, which is the reverse direction. So SIU message will always flow from PM to EHR, but not from EHR to PM. And then we have labs. So we have two message types in labs. One is ORM and the other one is ORU. ORM is nothing but observation request message. ORU is nothing but observation result unsolicited. So observation request message means nothing but it is a order message where it will contain the order information like perform a CBC, perform a urine culture, or perform some other X-ray or and so and so. So um, so basically it will have order related information and it is always represented with ORM message type. And ORU is nothing but the result message. It is again observation result unsolicited. The I mean the same logic applies here as well. Like upon schedule, you will have similar logic here where you will have where you have the result flowing from EHR to PM. Result will always flow from sorry, EHR to lab. Result will always flow from lab to the EHR, but not in the reverse direction because lab is always the source of generation of any diagnostic result. Okay, which is why observation results are always unsolicited. They don't flow back from EHR to PM, PM to sorry, from lab to uh, it will flow from lab to EHR, but not from EHR to lab. And then we have another messaging standard, another message type, which is DFT, which is nothing but the detailed financial transaction. So in detailed financial transaction, we see that uh, everything related to that particular appointment, whatever charges incurred during that visit for the patient will be included in DFT message. So within that DFT message, we will send whatever charges we had for the appointment and whatever charges we had for the diagnosis that has been performed or procedures that has been performed on the patient, and then whatever lab related charges are present will be sent in the DFT message. So as it says detailed financial transaction, it will include every charge related information and how much amount that particular patient has to pay for that very particular visit will be sent back from EHR to the PM system in the form of a DFT message. So one point note here that is that DFT message might vary based on the workflow that is being followed at the hospital. So let us discuss about two different workflows. Number one, where DFT message will have appointment related charges, like when we go for consultation, we will have appointment related charges 500 or 1000 rupees and so on. In the same way, they will go ahead and pick up the appointment related information, appointment related charges. That is number one. Second thing is if provider has performed any procedure, like say, let's say there is a guy who has gone with um, little wound on his hand or little cut on his hand, and he will sue it. So in this case, consultation charges will also be there, and also there is a special procedure that has been performed, like showing the wound. Yeah. So they will also charge for showing it. So there will be another procedure which will be considered for that. So whatever charges were incurred for that will also be included in the DFT. Now the third thing is about the labs. So whether or not to include a lab charge within the DFT message, it depends on the workflow acquired by the practice. So few practices will say that we'll have a tie-up with the lab and will say that whatever charge you have, hospital will pay at the end of the day or weekly basis or monthly or whatever their agreement is. Apparently, at the end of the day, hospital will pay the lab and not the patient. So in such scenarios, what hospital does is they will include the lab charges as well in the DFT message and they will send the insurance claim to the insurance company and then get the amount back and hospital will pay the laboratories at the end of the day. This is first scenario. In this scenario, lab related charges will also be included within the HL7 message. And now the next scenario is the hospital might not have a tie-up with labs. So in those cases, labs themselves will generate the generate the DFT message and will include lab related charges in the DFT message and send it directly to the insurance company. So in such cases, this amount which is for the labs will not be included in the DFT message that is going to be generated from EHR to PM system. So in that point of time, we'll have only um, appointment related charge, and we'll have only the the procedure related charge included in the DFT message. So this is more on functional side. So so it depends on the workflow that is acquired by the practice on how exactly they want to generate a charge message. Okay, so this is on the major node. So the broader level, each message has each message type, and each message type is represented with an acronym within the HL7 standard, and each acronym represents what type of message that is. So if you look at the full form of that acronym, then you will get clear picture of what is included in that specific message. Okay, any questions still here, Avinash?
So, like you are saying labs. So in labs, both pathology and radiology will be included, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
this
So is
includes
there
all
any,
different. Go ahead.
difference in so can we differentiate those within the mess by using messages or anything, or it will be the same format for both labs and radiology?
Format will be same, but there are few indications within the message by looking at which you will be able to determine whether it's a lab or a transcription message or a radiology message and on. So MSH3 is a value called sending application. It will determine whether it's a lab message or a radiology message or a transcription message. So if it is a
Yeah.
sending application is a lab message, then we will send it as MSH3 as lab. If it is a radiology message, we will send a message 3 as radiology, and so on. Apart from that, there are other things in the result message which we can look at and determine whether it's a lab message or a radiology message or a textual result. So I'll show that to you down the line when we talk about ORM message structure. We will we will discuss in detail on what are the various message types. We have another message type which I did not include here, which I will cover up later, which are called as additional message types like MDM and QRY, QRU, and all of these things. Here, on a major note, initially we will be taking a look at the basic standards and then we will advance into the other message types that are possible.
Okay. And one more, like
Mhm.
you are saying this appointment will be moved from PM to EHR and not from EHR to PM, right?
Right.
So if the provider cancels that,
hmm
if the, if the provider wants to cancel the appointment, then like what it uh, I mean
They
in
will
what
cancel that in
transaction?
EHR. They will cancel that in EHR. There wouldn't be
Okay.
any backflow of that message
Mm.
because once they visit, so there are two scenarios here. Now, provider will not the cancel the appointment if patient is in front of the provider. Okay,
Yes.
so the
Okay.
cancellation should generate from the PM system only if appointment is being cancelled way before the patient enters the hospital. Okay,
Okay.
so why will
Mhm.
provider cancel the appointment when the patient is sitting in front of him? If provider will not do that usually in real time. So if an
Mm.
appointment has to be cancelled, that has to be cancelled from PM system only.
Okay.
So there are multiple events within appointment that will happen. As I said, on this is on a broader note again. When we talk There are again sub-events to each one of these. We'll look at that in the next slide. So each sub-event, each event, that those are called as actual events. These are called as message types.
Okay.
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 So we will look at them and then I'll answer your question back. Basically, possibility is zero, where doctor will cancel an appointment. Cancellation has always should always generate from the PM system, not from EHR.
Okay.
So now each of these major events are again divided into sub-events. So when we look at patient registration, there are again two events that are possible. One is new patient registration and update patient registration. Okay. So new patient registration is one event, update is one event. So if what is an update? I think it is pretty much self-explanatory. If a patient information is already present in the PM system and if something has to be updated like address or email address or phone number, so they will update their existing record. So caps, so in that scenario, whenever there is an update to the existing record, there should be a message which has to be sent to EHR to update the data which is present in the EHR database. And then when we talk about new patient registration, it is brand new. So whenever they save any new patient information, that has to flow over to EHR. And then we have appointment schedule. Within appointment schedule, we have three events that are possible, which is new appointment, update appointment, and then delete appointments. So new appointment is getting a new appointment created. Update appointment is nothing but in case if they change the time of an appointment or in case if the appointment is bumped to a different day altogether and so on. So whenever there is any update to an existing appointment, then that will be represented in that will be sent through an event called as update appointment. And then we have delete appointment, which is nothing but canceling an appointment, and that will have a different event altogether. So each of the, as if you look further, each of these events are divided into sub events further, and each of these events have their own names again, which we will look at in a while. And then we will have charges. So charge information has only one event possible, which is nothing but sending out a charge message, whether it's from lab or whether it's from EHR or whether it's from PM to some other place. All that it has only one message type that we will include, uh, and that we'll be taking a look at. And then we have labs. So within labs, you have two different events that are possible. One is placing an order. Second one is receiving a result. Okay. So let's look at the names of each one of these in terms of HL7. So when we talk about HL7, registration is represented as ADT, as we have seen in the previous slide, and appointments are represented as SIU, charges are represented as DFT, and then messages are represented as, or labs are represented as ORM and ORU. And in the previous slide, just now we have seen each of these messaging events are again divided into sub events. A registration message will be represented with the help of A04 or A28. This is the event type. Okay. What we have seen previously, ADT is nothing but the message type, message and message type, and this ADT is A04 is the event type. So when we talk about a registration message, we always say that it is an ADT A04. We read it as a combination of message type and an event type. Okay, which we'll see in a while in an HL7 message how it is represented. But just remember that a message type is or what yeah the a message type will always be represented with the combination of message type and the event type. So for instance, an ADT new patient registration will be indicated as ADT A04, ADT A28. And whenever there is an update of patient record, we read it as ADT A28, sorry, A31 or ADT A08. So that is how it is indicated in an HL7 message. And for SIU, we have three events: new patient appointment, a new appointment scheduling, update of existing appointment, and then you have cancellation of an appointment. So new appointment is indicated with S12, existing appointment update will be indicated as S14, and cancellation of appointment will be indicated as S15. Okay, and then DFT is represented as PO3. DFT will have PO3 event type. And then you have order message. Order message is represented with the event of O01, and the result message is represented with the event of R01. So whenever we look at an order message, we read it as ORM O01, and when we look at a result message, we'll read it as ORU R01. So are these the only events that are possible? No. They are the most widely used event types in the HL7 industry. So whenever we talk mostly about orders, results, appointments, or demographics, we will come across these event types in 80% of cases. In the rest of the 20%, where the systems are different, um, few people might use ADT A01 for an appointment. A01 is an event, is an admit event. So few people will use ADT A05 for update of existing appointment. So those possibilities are there, but there are rare cases where you'll have other 20% of the cases. But 80 to 90% of the cases, people will be using, or hospital standards will be using these as the regular events to represent each one of these messages. Okay, so there are overall of more than 80 events which are present in the HL7 standard, but not all of them are used. Only few of them are most frequently used, and these are the ones which are included, which cover most of the hospital related events like orders, results, labs, charges, patient appointments, patients, and all. So we'll be looking at these all of message structures for each individual message types. For example, we'll look at the message structure of a demographic message structure of an appointment message, and DFT and ORM and ORU and all of these things. So that being said, we will quickly look at. So any questions with the event types, Avinash?
No, Dixon.
Okay, perfect. So we'll quickly jump into the messaging section. So I'll share this PPT with you so you can go through them. So each of the events are further broken down into ADT, A04 and A28. So here I clearly mention what are the full forms so that you can get it from here. Okay. I will share this PDF with you after the session. So if you look at just a quick comparison of both of these, so you have uh, a representation of each message type or event type, and here you have the individual representation in the form of HL7. All right, so now we can actually start about the messaging standard. So we'll look at each segment in detail, and within that each segment, what are the most important fields is what we will cover. I will explain each one of the fields and what is their functional relationship with what we get in the hospital workflow. Okay, so when we talk about MSH, we know that within an HL7 message, we have many segments, and each segment will have fields. So we will be looking at each of these segments, and the most first segment is MSH segment. So MSH is nothing but message header segment, message segment header. So again, each of these acronyms of the segment names will indicate what they are doing or what they are representing. Okay. So each of the segment will have their own name. First one is the message, as I said, message segment header represents the header information. So this can be compared to the index of any textbook or any other book where you will find index of what contains within that particular textbook. Okay, in the same way, a message segment will indicate what that message is all about, what information is included in that message, where it is coming from, where it is being sent, and all of this information will be included within the message segment. And when we talk about the requirement of message segment should be present in all the HL7 messages. Without a message segment, an HL7 message does not exist. Even if you try to parse, it is not a standard, first thing. And second thing is, standard integration engines will not consider any message which does have a message segment as an HL7 message. Okay, so it is always mandated to be sent in all the messages, whether it's an ADT message, SIO message, DFT, or any other event, A04, A08, or DFT, or ORM, whatever it is, a message segment has to be present always. So there are a few important fields of the message segment which we'll look at. Let me quickly pull out one HL7 message and then we'll go through it. So as you see, in the previous session, we discussed that we have delimiters within HL7, and pipe is a delimiter which separates each field, right? So this is called field number 1, this is called field number 2, this is field number 3, and this is field number 4, and so on. So we read it as MSH1, MSH2, MSH3, MSH4, MSH5, and so on. So that is how we read and indicate what are the placeholders within each segment and within each field. Okay, so if you look at MSH9, MSH9 represents ADT A08. We'll get there, but I just wanted to show the delimiter here. So if you keep reading it, you will end up in having number 9 here, which means it is indicated as MSH9. It is read as MSH9, and within 9 you have again two components. One is ADT and one is A08. So we read it as MSH 9.1, MSH 9.2. Okay, so that is how an MSH message is read. We'll look at what these components are later, when we are looking at the segment structure. With an exception of just for MSH segment, only for MSH segment, first field is called the field separator. Second field will include the delimiters which will be used throughout that particular HL7 message. Okay, and then we have MSH 3, 4, 5, and so on. If you look at a PID segment, first field will be this one, second field will be this one, third field will be this one, and so on. Okay, only for a message segment, first field is not this, but a field separator. And from second field on, it is normal. Second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on. Okay, so within an MSH segment, what are the important fields? So first one is a required field. So within this legend, we'll see what is the sequence of MSH, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what is the length as per the HL7 standard. And then we will see the data types of each field. And then we will also be seeing optionality, whether it is required or optional or withdrawn or what. We'll be looking at that. and then we will see whether it is a repeatable field or not, whether repetition for that field is allowed or not. And then there are few standards which has to be followed to send data in certain fields. So this table represents what is the standard table that has to be used from HL7 standards. You will understand this when we talk about when we talk with an example. And finally, the name. So here we'll be looking at the data types later. So we have two separate sessions for data types, so don't bother much about the data type right now. Once we understand what the fields are, how many, I mean, what the fields are, and what are their functional aspects of what are the functional aspect of each field, later you will be able to figure out uh, what exactly data type does here. Okay, so which is why we'll cover data types after completing the segments and fields. So for now, we'll take a look at whether a segment or whether the field is required or not, or whether the field is repeatable or not, and what is its use or what is the functional requirement of each field, the real-time hospital workflow. So as I said, MSH1 is field separator. So it represents this field, this particular pipe symbol, and MSH2 is encoding characters, which are nothing but the delimiters of the HL7 message. And MSH3 has sending application, which means MSH3 will include information about the application which is generating the HL7 message. When we talk about the real-time event, PM is sending a demographic message to EHR. So in such scenarios, PM will be practice management, that practice management application, whether it's a peak, all scripts or Cerner, that name will be the sending application name, which will be sent in MSH3. Okay. And then we have sending facility. Sending facility is nothing but the actual hospital or actual hospital who is or the location from where the HL7 message is being generated. So, for example, we have a location Hyderabad, we have another location Bangalore. So, if you are sending HL7 message from Hyderabad to Bangalore, then we will represent the application name as uh, PM application, whatever it is, Cerner, Epic, or whatever, and then the sending facility related information as Hyderabad and so on. So in the very same scenario, we have MSH4, MSH5 as a receiving application. So whatever is the receiving application at the other end, EHR application, that name will also be sent in the HL7 message that is being sent from the source. And also the receiving facility information will be available. And then we have MSH7. So MSH7 is nothing but the date and time of the message. So this always includes what is the date and time when the message got generated from the source system. So that information will be included in MSH7. And then MSH8 is security. This is optional. This is not needed. And then we have MSH9. MSH9 is required, which is nothing but the message type. So this is MSH9. So MSH9 represents the message type of the message. This is like the name of the textbook. Okay. So this represents what that message is exactly for. And just by looking at a message 9, we will understand whether it's a demographic message, whether it's an appointment message, whether it's a result or charge or whatever. So MSH9, without MSH9, message will not process in the real time through the integration engines because that is a required field. And also it is always necessary to include both message type and the event type, not just the message or not either of them. You have to include both message type and the event type in an HL7 message. So in the previous session, previous slide, we have seen that we have many events and each of these events are assigned to their own message types. An appointment will be indicated as SIUS 12, which indicates a new appointment. SIUS 14 will indicate an update of existing appointment and so on. And then we have message control ID. So message control ID is nothing but the unique ID using which a message will be identified. So without message control ID, we'll have many other problems like issues with identifying an acknowledgement message. And whenever we are searching for a specific message in the real time, you will receive hundreds of messages in the real time, right? So each message has to be identified separately. Message control ID does that work. Message control ID is the unique ID which is unique for that specific HL7 message and the source. So there are few scenarios to make it unique. Most of the people will use the date timestamp, including with milliseconds, to ensure that it is most accurate as possible and most unique as possible. And few people will concatenate to make it even more unique, and to ensure that there is no duplication of message ID. Few people will concatenate the patient ID with the actual date time of duration of that message, so that what happens is that will become the most unique. And at the same time, because the possibility of same time with the same patient generation of a message with the same patient ID at the same time is not possible twice, so that will make it a unique ID. And in that way they will generate a unique ID for each message and each source. So that is one use case scenario we'll look at while performing the transformations through mirth. We'll take a look at that. But for now, just understand that message control ID is the unique ID for each HL7 message. And then we have the processing ID. Processing ID is nothing but it indicates whether it is a production message, whether it's a development message, or whether it's a test message. So there are three possible values that you have in MSH 11, which are P, D, and T. P indicates production, D indicates development, and T indicates a test message. And then you have next the MSH 12, which is nothing but the version ID. So this will indicate the HL7 version that is in play. So whether it's 2.3, 2.5, 2.7, and so on. So this is a 2.3 version message. And then you have two other important fields, which are MSH 15 and MSH 16, which are nothing but accept acknowledgement and application acknowledgement type. So they have their own standard tables that has to be used. So when we talk about acknowledgement messages, there is a different message type called as acknowledgement message type, which we'll be looking at. So when we discuss about that, we'll discuss in detail what is an accept acknowledgement and what is an application acknowledgement. But the indications of whether this particular application is requiring a accept acknowledgement or an application acknowledgement will be indicated in MSH 15 or 16. Okay, so we'll talk about acknowledgements. So let us say um, when we are sending out a message from a source system to destination system. Okay, so once the message reaches the destination system, how would the source system know whether the destination received a message or not? So that is where acknowledgement will come into picture. Okay, so when we talk about the real-time transactions, as soon as an HL7 message is sent from source to destination, the destination will respond back with an acknowledgement message stating that, hey, I have received your message. So, I mean, just it's kind of a confirmation from the destination that destination received a message. So as I said, there are two types of acknowledgement, application as well as accept. So accept acknowledgement represent just stating that the destination has received an acknowledgement, received the message, source message, and sending out an acknowledgement back. Application acknowledgement is nothing but the destination system will process the message that it received before sending the acknowledgement back to the source system. So we will look at the differences of each of these, and this can very well be explained from uh, from the point of orders and results interfaces. We'll take a deeper look at that point of time. So this concludes about, so we have other fields as well, and in most of the scenarios we don't see these fields. So for each segment, I have highlighted few fields which are very much required for you to memorize or keep in mind during the process of real-time implementations. So from my experience, I have highlighted the ones which are most frequently talked about within a call or a kickoff call or during the process of implementation. And for each segment, we'll have this kind of table where you can get the information from. Okay, any questions, Avinash?
Uh, you are saying that for a message one, two, we have encoding characters, right? So
Right.
in every message, it will be like same character, or it will be changing that. I mean, the you have some different characters, right?
This one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is it will be same for all the messages for a message?
Yes.
Is there any significance of putting like that, or
This indicates that it is an HL7 message with which where the delimiters are these which are being used throughout the message.
okay,
So these are the standard dedicated delimiters which will be used for HL7. And so just to represent what are the symbols which are used as delimiters throughout the message, we indicate that in a message too.
okay. And you are saying a length, right?
Yes,
So for one, yeah. So for some, it is zero also.
right. Which means
So
even if, for example, if you take MSH3, even if you
okay,
don't have the value in MSH3, that's fine. So here
okay,
you have HL7 ADT. Okay, in an example, I said we might have Cerner as the sending system. Okay, but it is
okay,
not always essential that you have to send this info. You can send it this way as well. One important thing is if some data is not present in that field, you don't skip that field. You still will have that field, but you will send it as blank. So in this
oh,
case, if you are looking at this message, MSS3 doesn't hold any value. It is blank, but
yes,
MSH4 has. So which is why
okay,
it is said as 0.
okay. Like so, for MH3 and MH4, we
Mhm.
should know like who are sending and who are receiving. I mean, who are sending those, right? For
Right.
MH4 and MH, then even put having zero. I mean, so there is no complete information, right?
Yeah, there are few hospitals which don't send MSH3 but send MSH4, stating that it doesn't matter which application is sending, but we are going to send we are going to send our source information of where the HL7 message is being generated. So few hospitals will send just the facility information in the HL7 message. Few hospitals will send just the application and they will not send facility information. So there will be few scenarios where you will see MSH3 present, MSH4 as blank, and few you will see where MSH3 is not present, MSH4 is present, and MSH5 and 6 they don't they might not send it at all. They don't even bother of where we are sending the HL7 message because
Okay,
MSH5
so
and 6 are receiving application and receiving facility.
okay, so either of three or four should be present, or even both are blank. Also, nothing will happen.
You can have four of them blank, no problem.
hmm Okay,
Because that is not the main criteria. Main criteria is ADT message message generation date time, message type, message control ID. These are the three main things which are most important in an HL7 message in an MSH segment.
okay.
But in the real time, you will not see everything blank. Either you will have three, either you will have four, either you will have five, either you will have six. But if you don't want to send anything, that is also okay.
Mhm. Okay. And one more thing is like, so what are the messages we are sending? Even the destination system should also have the same configuration, right?
It depends on the destination system. If destination is receiving or validating whatever is sent in a message 3, 4, if they are performing that validation, then that combination should match. If not, then that's fine. So it depends on implementation level whether they want to validate that particular thing or not. So few systems will validate only a message 3, stating that we always require that particular field. If that field is not present, we will error the message.
Okay.
So to conclude, standards are there. Whether something is required, something is optional, and something is not. But always there, whenever we talk about an HL7 implementation, there is always a discussion called as kickoff call. Okay. So
Okay.
which is the initial call of any HL7 implementation where they will discuss about the specifications of each others. So there will be exchange of specifications. Let's say we both are implementation engineers and you have your own application. I have my own application and I am going to generate an HL7 message and send it to you. You will share your own specification with me and vice versa. I will also do the same, and we will go through that and we will ensure that our message that I am going to generate will comply with the standards that you have. Irrespective
Mhm.
of the standards of HL7 message, at times you might say from your end that MSS 3, 4 are compulsory required for you. So from a sending system perspective, I will ensure that MSS 3, 4 will be sent. But when we talk about HL7 standard, those are optionals. So in real time world, when we talk about implementations, these requirements of these optionality options will change. Change in the sense they change it for themselves, which is not a standard again. As per the standard, you can have it as an optional, but the receiving system will say that I want a message 3 for sure because we use that for routing. So in that case, I will also tweak my messages to ensure that I'm sending a message 3.
Okay. So in like at the time of implementation, so we'll be having requirements from both the source and destination system.
Yes,
Is it right? Okay.
yes, we'll have, and there will be deviations from the standard. That's what I was trying to say.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, okay, great. So, so I forgot, Avinash. So you are in US or India?
No, I'm in India itself.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you are from background?
So like I'm into like almost 10 years into US healthcare. So I worked on claims and
Okay.
also this demographic entry EOB.
This conference will now be recorded.